Okay, my favourite spoof movie is Shaun of the Dead because it really picked up on the codes and conventions of American cinema and put it into British cinema.
My favourite comedy spoof horror would be Zombieland because it includes comedy and also a romance element, and it looks at zombies in a different way than been looked at before.
My favourite spoof movie is the original Casino Royale with David Niven and Woody Allen and Peter Sellers. I like it because it's got that sort of 60s charm to it, while at the same time it does quite a good spoof on the thing while also being quite wacky.
My favourite spoof movie of all time would have to be Shaun of the Dead, I'd say, because it incorporates a lot of elements from horror films, but at the same time twists them to make them kind of laugh at them in a way. It's like to laugh at the conventions which make up horror films.
I choose Insidious because it has a kid as the main evil character, and you could like do stuff to make him suffer, and you can like hurt him, and it'd be funny to watch because he's the evil one.
I'd choose Paranormal Activity simply because it's based on quite a sort of odd precept of everything. All the horror takes place on one film camera, and because of doing that then you'd sort of be able to dick around with it, because 90% of the stuff caught on film camera is boring and meaningless, so you could sort of make the boring and meaningless stuff quite funny to the effect. Okay?
I spoof Paranormal Activity, and I would spoof The Fourth Kind because they're kind of like found footage, and I think that could be easily taken the piss out of, and also I think it should be called Normal Activity as a joke.
I think that the protagonist of the horror film should be a man, really, because the victim is usually a frail girl. It's kind of cliche. So having a girl be the protagonist kind of doesn't really make sense to me.
The character should be female because horror films have become synonymous for sort of female, especially in America, for sort of female leads. And therefore, in order to correctly spoof it, I think it would be vitally important that you had a female lead.
I would say a boy because the people that tend to go and see films like this will be males, so they'll be able to identify with the protagonist more.
I think that it should be a female because it would be taking a spoof movie takes the codes and conventions off the genre, so a girl protagonist is something new and up to date, so that would be good.
I would want the killer to be a masked killer because then it adds a sense of mystery to who's the murderer, and if it was just an alien or someone then you'd know who it was straight away.
I think that Death would be a good villain or a bad guy in a horror film because you can't escape death, which the Final Destination films taught us.
I personally use zombies because zombies are at the moment the flavour of the month, and therefore there's surprisingly little amount of ridicule around zombies because of their original spurious nature as part of something that's horrible. They are creatures of ridicule even in the horror genre, and therefore it'd be interesting to see what it'd be like spoofing them rather than just spoofing, say, a masked killer or something like that.
I would say a knife because it's just something expanding the everyday home, but it can be made dangerous and to kill.
For death, I think I would use a gun that has silver bullets in it because made up myth would say that they can kill death.
I would go for an abandoned city personally because at the moment it's kind of the feel of you've got films like Resident Evil and other sort of zombie films out there, but also there's something quite, I mean, woods can seem lonely, but abandoned cities can seem even more lonelier where there's absence of life. I mean, woods without any form of mass absence of life is terrifying, and also at the same time it's got quite an interesting effect on the audience, and it ties in with a lot of sort of Cold War fears and stuff like that. It feels apocalyptic in that sense.
I think the woods because it's a good place to spoof, and it's a traditional place that you'd see in a horror genre film.
Well, I'd use an abandoned house in a spoof movie because, well, you're isolated. You can do pretty much whatever you want in the confines of the house. Discover secrets, which could be amusing. But also there's the potential for people to bump into each other and think that, you know, they're one thing and they're actually something else.
I would say a 12 because younger audiences tend to like the comedy spoof, silly sort of films, and so a 12 would make it accessible to wider audiences.
I think 15 because it needs to have the same kind of gore and violence to the horror film that you're spoofing, but it needs to be accessible to all audiences because some jokes might be funnier than others.
I think the age appropriate for a spoof horror would be 15 because that means you can include some swearing or some really bloody stuff, but not too much because it would be an 18. But you know, teenagers like spoof, don't they? So.
Well, I think this is an appropriate age for a spoof movie because it's not really an 18, it's not too graphic, it's not too violent, it's in between, it's quite funny. But then again, there are some elements which are a bit too mature for a 12-year-old audience, per se. So I think that a 15-year-old would appreciate the movies better.
I'd say 15 would be the most appropriate age rating for a spoof movie because it has to be quite bawdy or rude or just vulgar and unpleasant, but at the same time you can't make it 18 and thus alienate your audience because it is designed to make people laugh, and anything past 18 can often be seen as sort of not specific but more sort of overly violent or overly horrific or something like that, and therefore 15 is sort of just right. It's the happy medium.